But I just want to clarify, if we find the funding and the RGD board is on board, you would support the inclusion of other alternatives?
We're not precluding any study of any additional alternatives. So if they come up, we're committed to taking a look at those.
Chair Lewis, I would just clarify, the funding being identified is not required to be able to include any alternative in this NEPA analysis. The thing that we're not able to commit to, and it gets to the point that we made a couple of weeks ago about not being pre-decisional, is we can't guarantee that a certain alternative will ultimately end up being the preferred alternative after the scoping analysis is done. Yeah. But there's nothing from a funding perspective that prevents any of the alternatives, either from the Peña Master Plan or a new transit-only alternative, from being included in the scoping phase of the NEPA analysis. And so that is something that will potentially come from public engagement. That can happen. There's funding available to do it. Obviously, in the future, to the degree to which that becomes a real project, those funding questions need to be figured out in the context of the airport's diversion of revenue, other community funding, but that's not a prerequisite for being evaluated through the NEPA analysis.
Okay, then I have one follow-up. So please. In the community engagement process, if the community identifies those alternatives as to be included, then you all would include them?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the purpose of the NEPA process, is to ensure that this is, again, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, this is the federal environmental law that provides the opportunity for public engagement in major federal actions. And so that part has not changed.
The answer is yes. That's the answer. If they come up in the community process, we will take a look at those.
I mean, do you want to see my inbox? Because the A line has come up. Like
yeah. If it comes up in the
how does it need to come up? Maybe that's the question.
Well,
it might be a process.
The community process. The community process has not officially started yet.
Is there a volume or threshold? Like if council members are receiving communications via email or conversations from constituents or even their coffee office hours, is there a threshold that one would need to be able to bring to you all to say, hey, we've heard this from a large amount of folks that should be included in
there is not a set threshold that I know, but we will hear those things when they come up from the community or wherever they come from. We will consider those.
One more question then. So if there's not a threshold, how do you collect that information and synthesize it and then bring it back to draw the conclusion of what those alternatives may or may not be?
Our consultant will bring. We constantly are talking to the consultant.
Okay.
So this is not something that they will be doing in a vacuum. We have our planning teams. We have our manager of the consultant that will hear all of this information. We do this all the time. We have environmental processes all the time, and we will know when these things rise to the surface.
And also with the support of the federal agency that is ultimately responsible for NEPA. Everyone has an incentive to ensure that all of the alternatives are being considered. Again, I think the misunderstanding here is the fact that during the Peña Master Plan process, there was public engagement promoting transit alternatives as well. We believe that there is ultimately challenges associated with the airport being able to fund those through this particular project. That does not mean that they cannot be considered through the NEPA process. And so if they get brought back in by NEPA, I think Phil has said very clearly that all of those alternatives will be considered.
Okay, thank you. That about wraps up the queue. So if there's nothing else, I really appreciate you all coming back to give us some more time to chat with you.